going to start with our first topic here, and that is about COVID. And NBA, much like the rest of the world, has really seen COVID really kind of come back into the headlines with a force. It's caused countless stars, role players all around the league to sit out games due to health and safety protocols. So, Jarrett, how bad has COVID hit the NBA over this last month? And how do you feel the league is handling this situation?
Well, for me personally, I don't watch the news a lot, so I really didn't realize how bad the COVID outbreak was until it started hitting the NBA. Because the NBA for me, that was like my meter on like how bad it is
Hmm.
just gaining the world in general. So once it caught on in the NBA, I'm like, oh geez, okay, maybe I should start washing my hands a little bit more and getting that hand sanitizer out. But it's affected the NBA a lot. I mean, you see any player can be in and out of the lineup at any given night. You're expecting to see Kevin Durant and James Harden when you show up to Barkley? Nope. Kevin Durant's down for the game. You only got James Harden, but hey, you're lucky to have James Harden.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. My team, the Chicago Bulls, were the first team to get hit by this pandemic, like kind of right before we went on our brief little holiday hiatus. And it was scary. I'm like, I was shocked the NBA wasn't canceling games. And then they finally did after like one or two games were like, hey, the Chicago Bulls have no players. Help us
Yeah.
out, please. And then after the Bulls, it just ran through everyone else. And I know most of the league is vaccinated, but there seems to be no rhyme or reason to why this is happening. I don't know if it's because the vaccines are wearing off, not everyone has their boosters, or this Omicron variant, which I saw at one point was like 90% of the league's infections is just
Hmm.
does not care if you have a vaccine or not. Um, but I think the NBA for the most part is handling this pretty well. All the players, like a lot of them have been saying, like, I'm not feeling harsh effects from the symptoms. So I'm ready to go once I'm cleared. Like there's no
Yeah.
there doesn't seem to be any reports of like any like some of those like long standing effects like how Jason Tatum's talked about in the past and stuff like that. So I think with the NBA kind of rushing to get players back as long as they're clear and healthy, I don't really see a problem with it if the players themselves want to play.
Yeah. Yeah, it's no doubt COVID is really taking a stranglehold on a bunch of teams. And I think we finally started to see over these last few weeks where teams just didn't have the minimum 8 players to play a basketball game, where the league had to kind of step in and say, hey, we can't play this game because Miami or Utah or whatever just doesn't have the bodies in order to play a basketball game. So it's been interesting to see kind of the second go around. Last time when the sports kind of started up again, NBA was kind of the last season to have to deal with it. Baseball and football really had to kind of deal with COVID, and NBA could kind of sit back and kind of just see, what are the other leagues doing, what works, what doesn't work, what can we follow. This time, NBA has kind of had to sort of lead it. I know the NFL season is going on, but it doesn't seem like they've had quite as much of an outbreak. They have had some game movements and cancellations maybe a day or two after. But with basketball, we're really seeing this because you have a roster of 15 guys. And if you have 10 guys that are in health and safety protocol, you can't play a basketball game. You just don't have the numbers. And it's been interesting because some players have been kind of critical of the league postponing some games due to lack of players. I saw most recently Golden State's Draymond Green was mad that they canceled or they rescheduled their game against Utah when just a few days prior to that one, they played a game against Utah where Golden State didn't have all of their players and they weren't at full strength, and Utah actually beat them in that game. So I think it's a weird situation, and I think the league is doing its best to kind of adjust to the CDC protocols that are coming out now because I, the Omicron, the variants, kind of its calling card is it's a lot easier to actually get it, to actually transmit it, but the symptoms don't seem to be as harsh as it was before. So that's where we're seeing the league kind of adjust to like, hey, if you test positive, instead of being out 10 days, now if you can test negative after 5 days, you can come back and play. So I think they're doing a good job of adjusting that. But still, I think it's something that the league is having to play by ear. And I think these players are having to play catch up and just kind of, they've been sitting around thinking, hey, I'm vaccinated or all of my team is vaccinated, but still you could be dealing with a COVID outbreak and that doesn't really seem to matter.
I hope the silver lining after all of this is clearly, I would say, and this is just off the top of my head, like 80 to 85% of the league has been out with protocols at some point during the season. I'm kind of hoping that this variant that's just basically blown through the NBA like a wildfire with a
Mm,
wind gust behind it, like a blowtorch, that this leads to essentially an immunized like NBA, so where
Yeah.
like the rest of the season there's no problem because of the antibodies. I'm not a scientist. I don't really know how that works. I'm hoping and praying that like that's the case and we won't have to deal with this. And if another variant comes along and that's a little worse or way worse, everyone's gonna be okay. But who knows? Like I said, this situation constantly changes as we've seen throughout the last 2 years, especially in sports. So you never really know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, yeah, and you mentioned that's a possible silver lining. One silver lining that I want to talk about too is how about the return of some former players and star players that we're seeing
So Joe.
getting a second or third or sixth chance, I don't care, in the league. It's awesome to see, seeing guys like Isaiah Thomas, ISO Joe, Lance Stevenson, Stanley Johnson. How about Mario Chalmers back in the Miami Heat? I love to see that. All these guys are getting another chance to come in, and even though it's a 10-day contract, getting a chance to come in, show that they can play. Isaiah Thomas did his 10 days in the Lakers, had a few pretty good games, especially his debut there. Didn't get a second 10-day or didn't get a contract for the Lakers, but is now playing on a 10-day for the Dallas Mavericks. So he's just coming in, showing he can still play. I think a lot of these guys, they might be like a one and done. They'll come in, play a 10-day, maybe not even get a shot at another team. But I think some of these guys, like how about Stanley Johnson with the Lakers? He seems to be, I know the Lakers haven't been great by any stretch of the imagination, but it seems like he's providing something that they need. Solid defense. He can knock down a shot when he's open, which really at this point is what the Lakers are looking for. So it wouldn't surprise me to see Stanley Johnson grab up a roster spot for the rest of the year with his play, really on the defensive end. That might earn it for him. But I love to see these guys. I mean, I think the league turned their back a little bit too quick on Isaiah. ISO Joe, I don't think they turned their back on him. Everybody knows ISO Joe is a bucket. For him, it's just age. But these guys are getting another chance in the league, and I am here for it. We know these guys can play, man. I am here for it.
Oh man, I am all for it too. The last couple seasons, I thought the turnover in the NBA has been ridiculous. Like
Mhm.
every year, like it used to be a point I could name every player on every roster, top to bottom, through 15.
Yeah.
You show me a picture of a player, I tell you where they are. The last couple seasons, the turnover has been so crazy where we're seeing guys that are like on an all-star team a season or two prior bounce out of the league the next season. And then all these like random G leaguers you've never heard of that really don't stick for more than a year or at the bottom of the rosters. And
Mhm.
I'm like, who are these people? So every time I see a Mario Chalmers or a Lance Stevenson, an Isaiah Thomas, a Greg Monroe
Yeah.
on my
Yeah.
little alert from Shams or from Woj, just saying, oh, 10-day contract, I'm happy because these are names I know. These are players I
Mhm.
know. These are players, even though maybe they're not necessarily moving the needle. Like, sorry, Lance Stevenson, you weren't great with the Hawks, but
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
return part two with the Indiana Pacers. So I'm here for
Exactly.
that. Uh,
Exactly.
but it just feels good to see some old names get some run again. Look at what Greg Monroe did. He got a call the same
Mhm.
day, was out with the Minnesota Timberwolves, didn't know half his teammates, and was playing crunch time minutes in a
Mhm.
win over the Boston Celtics. And he
Yeah.
had, I think, close to a double double. He had like at least 11 points, maybe 8 boards. It's just off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But I love seeing guys like this get a run again.
Yeah, there's guys that are out there that are showing that they still have what it takes to maybe not be a star player, but they can give you 15, 20 minutes off the bench, go in there, play some solid minutes, and they're veterans. And the history of this league, especially the last 20 years, is veterans win championships. Maybe you don't go as far as the Lakers have this season, where they literally have a have a
The
nursing
geriatric
home.
ward.
Yeah, but veterans win championships. You want to have that nice mix, but really you see those teams that where their star players are more like in their early 30s, maybe not their late 30s, but that's where you really see these championship caliber teams come. And, I made a TikTok a few days ago, which shout out to our TikTok if you're not following that TMO
Check it
pod.
out.
Got a lot of fun stuff over there. But I made a TikTok where, I kind of just listed some guys I want to see get another chance. And I listed, what about Jamal Crawford? I think he
I'm
deserves a
shocked
10-day
he's
chance.
not in yet.
Yeah, I am so surprised. Jamal seems to hang on forever, and he can still play. He can still play. And Kyle Korver, you can never use enough shooting. I know he's way past his prime, but he showed with
Bulls could
Milwaukee
use
there.
him.
Showed in Milwaukee the end of his career can be like sort of a Ray Allen with Miami Heat. Come in, knock down a three. And one of the ones I put is let's give LiAngelo Ball a shot, man. He's down there in the G League. Why not? Why not? LeVar Ball did say, well, he said a lot of things, but he said all three of my kids were going to end up in the NBA, and he said LiAngelo is the best, and he's the only one we're not seeing. I want to see him get a shot.
I think there's a reason for that though.
I want to see him get a shot.
I don't think he's that good. He might be a good G League player, but that's about it. There's a lot more names I'd rather see than LiAngelo Ball in the NBA.
Oh, I get that, but I think we're going to see it at some point. And maybe I think we're going to see it at some point this
It's
season.
possible. It's
I think so.
possible. What's also crazy with that, I don't know if you saw, but the night Greg Monroe played, he was the 541st NBA player to play a game that season, which is a league record, which that number has only increased since.
Oh, it's
And,
going to continue to, yeah.
At that point, we weren't even to 2022. So
Oh,
that's
man.
crazy.